Hemp's great. We can do this or that or this or that. There's people with a list of 1,000 things. But at the end of the day, if the farmer that grows the hemp can't afford to grow the hemp, this list isn't very exciting. And so we've got to make it affordable for the farmer. The farmer has to profit from this plan.
That's Andrew Bish from Hemp Harvest Works. This is the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. My name is Eric Harlock, and today I'll talk to Andrew Bish about his company Hemp Harvest Works, which is part of Bish Enterprises, a farm equipment manufacturer in Giltner, Nebraska, where they've got a full line of equipment for harvesting hemp. Andrew is also part of the Hemp Feed Coalition that is working to get hemp approved as an animal feed. We're also going to hear from Luke Canese, a hemp farmer in Ohio who was the lucky winner of our hemp headphone giveaway last week. But first, a word from our sponsor, and then a few nuggets of hemp news. This episode is brought to you by I&D Hemp. Are you interested in grain and fiber production and wondering where to source seed? I&D Hemp is the U.S. representative and supplier of X59, a premier grain variety perfect for food processors that also produces a dual crop straw yield for herd and bast fiber. X59 has been grown in multiple states and climates and is a consistent top yielder. I&D Hemp is seeking processors around the country to partner with to support local farmers growing hemp for grain and fiber. Go to indhemp.com to learn more. Okay, welcome back to the show. So a few nuggets of hemp news this week. This first one comes from the Manistee News Advocate in Michigan. The headline reads, "New State Plan Has Hemp Growers Uncertain About the Future," written by Sam Blatchford. So, the story says, hemp growers in Michigan say they're frustrated by the new regulations and fees for reporting hemp samples. The changes by the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development leave many hemp growers saying it's uncertain if they can afford to grow next season. So the department has changed how growers will report their samples this year. They will no longer submit their own samples for testing. Instead, inspectors will collect samples. Growers will pay a $150 sample collection site visit fee and a $125 per sample lab testing fee, as well as the $1,250 licensing fee. So that gets expensive. So we'll keep an eye on that. If you're a hemp farmer in Michigan who's dealing with this, drop me a line. I'd love to talk to you. Send me an email at podcast@lancasterfarming.com. All right, this next story comes from New York State. It's in Hemp Today, and the headline reads, "New York opens licensing under Cannabinoid hemp program." The story says that New York officials have opened the licensing application process in a controversial cannabinoid hemp program, the state's attempt to set a wide range of rules to guide development of the CBD sector. The State Department of Health started accepting applications for businesses interested in manufacturing, processing, and selling CBD products this week, the governor announced. So it's interesting that we're seeing, cannabinoid hemp versus industrial hemp. We'll keep an eye on this one too. Here's a story from foodnavigator-usa.com. Headline reads, "New U.S. Hemp Authority Standard Spells Out Broad and Full Spectrum Specs," written by Hank Schultz. The story reads, "The U.S. Hemp Authority has released the latest version of its certification standard, whose aim is to promote best practices and heighten transparency among hemp companies." Marielle Weintraub, president of the U.S. Hemp Authority, said the overarching goal of the program is to help consumers make sense of a marketplace jumbled with products of varying quality. Last year, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration tested a suite of CBD products bought on the open market and found generally poor quality control and undisclosed THC in some products. This is the third version of the group's certification standard. Weintraub said the process of refining the standard has been tumultuous, but the industry seems to be finding some common ground. Hemp Industry Daily is reporting that Levi's, the jeans company, is teaming up with a Danish fashion brand, Gani, to offer denim jeans, jackets, dresses, and tops made of cottonized hemp. The collection promotes the items as more sustainable than cotton-based denim. Levi's already has a limited selection of cottonized hemp offerings in its Well thread line. The American denim maker, Levi's, and Gani's collaboration goes on sale today, Wednesday. Here's a story from Hemp Industry Daily. Headline reads, "Hemp and U.S. animal feed is one step closer to fruition." It says, "In the United States currently, humans can eat food made from hemp, yet we can't legally eat meat or eggs from animals that have eaten hemp. But with the recent action by the Hemp Feed Coalition, a Fort Collins, Colorado-based nonprofit seeking to gain federal approval for hemp and its byproducts as a source of commercial animal feed and nutrition, the industry is a little closer to seeing that become a reality. That's because the Hemp Feed Coalition has completed its first submission for hemp to become an approved animal feed ingredient for consideration by the Association of American Feed Control Officials and the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's Center for Veterinary Medicine. If approved, the ingredient application will allow hemp seed meal and cake to be legally used as a commercial feed for laying hens. And finally, one more story a little closer to home. This one's from the Philadelphia Inquirer. It says, after a long wait, New Jersey moves ahead on recreational pot. The story says a recreational marijuana marketplace, cannabis decriminalization, and looser penalties for underage possession became law Monday in New Jersey, more than 3 months after voters overwhelmingly approved a ballot question to legalize adult use of the plant. Okay, not totally hemp-related, but here in Pennsylvania, where recreational marijuana is not legal, we now have our New Jersey neighbor right there, right on the edge, and so you're going to see money flowing over there. So if you state officials are listening to this, you got to make a move on this, right? We don't want Pennsylvania money going to New Jersey. Sorry, New Jersey, we just want to keep the money here because that's how local economies stay strong. And remember, Pennsylvania officials, as you set up your recreational marijuana program, keep Pennsylvania hemp farmers in mind because they know what they're doing, okay? So please involve them in the conversation. I know it comes down to the Republicans in the State House. What's his name? Brian Cutler, Speaker of the House. It all comes down to you guys. You could make a difference for the farmers in Pennsylvania. So come on, guys, get it together. I'll have links to all of these stories on the show page for this episode at lancasterfarming.com. And you heard me mention cottonized hemp and the Hemp Feed Coalition in these news nuggets. Well, I will actually be talking to Andrew Bish about these very things in the interview coming up, so stay tuned for that. And you might remember that last week we announced our winner for the headphone giveaway. Turns out the winner was Luke Canese from Focus Organics in Ohio, and we will be checking in with him after the interview with Andrew Bish. And last week I mentioned a new giveaway coming up with Canvest Supply Company, but we are still putting the details of that giveaway together, so you're going to have to tune in next week to get all of that, but I promise you it's going to be awesome. So, all right, let's get into today's interview. Andrew Bish, welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Eric.
Yeah, it's exciting to talk to you. Can you give us a little bit of an introduction?
Yeah, my name's Andrew Bish. I operate a couple businesses, Bish Enterprises, which was founded in 1976 by my grandfather, and then now Hemp Harvest Works. I founded just a few years ago, mainly as a sales organization for Bish Enterprises. As when we started venturing into this industry, it wasn't quite legal yet in the state of Nebraska, so we did that to protect us. In addition to that, I serve as the vice president of the Hemp Feed Coalition. I am a board member of the Colorado Hemp Association, and I founded the Nebraska Hemp Industries Association.
All right. Well, welcome to the show. It's always nice to talk hemp with people from Nebraska, right?
Yeah. There's not very many of us.
Well, first, tell me more about Bish Enterprises. You said your grandfather founded that, and do you manufacture farming equipment, or what is the nature of...
Great question. So Bish Enterprises, my grandfather started in 1976, basically doing some simple modification work for some producers. And then as time went on, people identified some of his skills, and he started to develop some different products. What we're most famous for is our header adapters. We adapt red headers to green combines and so on and so forth. And we've got about 130 different combinations now. So that's kind of what's made us famous throughout the world. And then we do custom builds of large-scale headers as well as research headers for the soybean and sorghum industry.
Okay. And that understanding of headers is going to come in handy in your Hemp Harvest Works. So why did you want to get involved in hemp? Like what was it for you personally that brought you into the world of industrial hemp?
Oh, it was by accident. Actually, I didn't necessarily want to be involved in hemp. I didn't not want to be involved in hemp, but we actually had one of our customers that pulled me into it. We'd gotten a phone call from a custom harvester who had been familiar with some of our equipment, thought a piece of equipment that we had produced for the sorghum industry would apply to harvesting hemp for grain. And so we went out to eastern Colorado, and 180 acres later, I guess I got bit by the hemp bug, and I couldn't get away. We just, if you look at what our family business was founded on, it was providing solutions to growers. And what we saw, what I saw at the time was that there weren't a lot of solutions for hemp producers, and that kind of became our calling here.
Well, good. Well, let's talk about the different pieces of equipment that you make for hemp farmers. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, I guess we'll start at the beginning, and we can work our way forward. So what got us here was our super crop header. Like I said, we developed that piece of equipment for the sorghum industry. We were trying to solve some needs. Sorghum producers typically grow in low moisture environments. They were looking for something that they can pick up as much material as possible while leaving as much material out in the field for foraging and water conservation. And that's what we produced that header to do. Some of the unique features of that header lent itself very good to hemp, and some of our work that we'd done doing some millet harvesting helped us with reducing our wrapping before we even walked into the hemp field. So what we like about that header is it's great for grain in the way that we can feed the plants in. We don't have an overhead reel like most headers do. So we don't have anything that the height disadvantages us and can do some pretty gentle feeding of the crop with reduced shatter compared to some of the other headers out there. So that's really how we got into the industry. And then at that time, we started looking at other ways to produce grain and fiber equipment, and found that the marketplace just really wasn't there yet. But CBD, growing for CBD, was very, very interesting. We found out. I didn't even know what CBD was at the time, but there was quite a demand. So we started producing a machine called our Bud Easy, which is a bucker. You can do about 1,400 pounds in 8 hours of stripping hemp flower from the stalks. Very, very efficient machine. We sold that for several years. And then we started developing a harvester for CBD equipment. And we partnered with a company out of South Carolina called Marco Manufacturing to help reintroduce a product that they had developed for the tobacco industry for harvesting burley tobacco specifically. We did a bunch of research and design, which is one of my habits, and ended up finding out how to make that harvester work really well. And we sold quite a few of those in the 2018, 2019 growing seasons. While we were doing that, we started to figure out how we could do this at a little bit larger scale. So we took some of what we learned in our few years of CBD harvesting, and we reconfigured our super crop header and built a header to go on the front of a forage harvester. And that really allowed us to cover some serious ground. Now we were harvesting 6 rows wide, we're chopping in the field, and we're able to move through quite a few acres very, very efficiently. That was something we produced, I think it's about 2.5 years now that we've had that header out in the marketplace.
That's great. I'm looking at a picture of it now on the internet here.
Yeah, it's exciting to see big equipment like that going through the field. Before they had 30 and 40 guys out there in that field, and now they just have the operator running the cart, and then the operator running the machine, and then of course they've got their drying crew back at the drying facility. So that really helped that producer, because they're in a part of the country where it's just really hard to find labor.
Right.
This last year, we really spent a lot of time developing different ways to harvest grain and fiber. Last year, we introduced a way to put a header into the air 9 feet on the front of a combine.
Wow.
And then this year, we we finished up a machine called our fiber cut, which is a really exciting machine. It allows us to cut just fiber varieties. We've got a multi-tiered sickle system, and we can cut 15 feet wide, and we're cutting that in 30-inch segments, between 6 inches at the bottom, 6 to 9 inches at the bottom cut, and up to about 10'6", 10'9" at the top cut.
Okay. And then does that just lay it down in the field to be retted?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to lay it down, and then people are going to have to either let that ret and rake it, or they might have to use a tedder, depending on their conditions, and then rake it and bale it.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you do any like dual crop stuff?
Yeah. So that was that header that we put into the air 9 feet. That was the purpose.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, that was the purpose for that. We first wanted to identify how to get high enough to get those taller grain crops, and then the purpose there is to put another header on the bottom of the combine, so that you can harvest and then windrow that fiber all in one pass.
And do you have growers all over the country using your equipment now?
Yeah, most of our customers are not local. Nebraska has been very slow to the hemp game. When you look at some of our biggest states, I would say we do a lot of business in hemp in Colorado, in Oregon, Kentucky, Tennessee, a little bit into the Southeast, New York. And now we're seeing quite a bit of interest into the Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas areas.
Okay. And maybe after this, a little bit more into Pennsylvania.
Yeah, absolutely. We have done a marginal amount of business out there, but yeah, I love your state. So the more business we can do out there, the better off.
Good. So what's the deal with Nebraska and hemp? Why are they so slow to get on board?
You know, we're a very conservative state. It takes Nebraska a long time to adopt things that, quite honestly, other states are much quicker to adopt. It's always been the way of things here. So we were actually pretty impressed that we got it passed. The governor has not been behind what we're doing at all, and that's probably the biggest disadvantage we have in the state. Nebraska is very unique in the way that we have a unicameral. We do not have two houses. We have a single house. And so our executive branch can actually put direct pressure on our house in ways that you can't do in a two house system. And that has really made things more complicated for us as a state. In addition, because Nebraska was a little bit slow to it, there was a lot of concerns that people had that farmers were going to get in and go broke, and people didn't want farmers to do that. You know, it's amazing how politicians think that they're smarter than farmers and that they're able to protect farmers, but you know, that's what they think. So those were some of the motivating factors that helped slow roll this whole process in the state.
So there is a program now, though. Yes.
Yeah, we got 2 years ago. We introduced some language. My brother and I worked very hard to get some language introduced, LB 657, and we were able to pass the Nebraska Hemp Act.
Okay, so how many growers are involved in the program?
So the first year was very interesting. They only gave 1 week for people to apply for licenses, and they had about 160 some people apply. They only actually issued 7 permits the first year. The second year, it's wide open. Now we've got a much more regular permitting process. You can apply any day of the week, all year long. Your application expires at December 31st, or your license expires on December 31st of every year. So it's a lot easier to get into now. We saw about 30 to 40 producers grow some small acres of hemp last year. And I was really happy to see that most of the farmers followed our prescription. We actually went around the state promoting hemp to farmers, but promoting that they do small scale test plots to understand the plant a little bit better and really not have much risk.
When I think about Nebraska, you know, I see like amber waves of grain and wide open spaces. Are your farmers interested in grain and fiber, or are they sticking to the CBD stuff right now?
So they're much more interested in grain and fiber versus CBD. We've got a lot of challenges from a CBD perspective, which is why I was part of the reason I was educating farmers that they should do small acreages and stay away from CBD. We've got a lot of feral hemp. I tell people we've got more feral hemp in our ditches than Colorado licensed legally for hemp in the state, and they did 70,000 acres. So we've got a lot of feral hemp, which is going to lead to a lot of pollination issues for CBD producers.
Yeah.
Also, Nebraska is not really geared for vegetable farming. We don't, or horticultural farming at all. There's very, very few places and people in the state. I would bet that there's a handful of people in the state that own a transplanter. Or that type of equipment. It's just not out there.
Right.
So it doesn't lend itself well. The farmers are really excited about the grain, really excited about the fiber, but the concern is where can they get that processed? Where's the local elevator that they can take it, because that's their familiarity.
And where is that supply chain in its development right now? Or is there anyone looking at building some kind of facility?
Yeah, it's been a little bit tough in the state of Nebraska. We actually had 0 processors in the state of Nebraska for the past couple of years, and now there's I think there's one CBD processor in Kearney and one in Omaha, Nebraska. There hasn't been any grain or fiber producers come to fruition yet. A group that I'm working with, actually, I started a consulting firm outside of our business here at Bish Enterprises and Hemp Harvest Works, and we are working to get a decortication facility set up in the state of Nebraska in the next 90 days so that we can be prepared for this
wow,
harvest
that's
season.
quick. Where in the state will that be located?
We're still trying to sort that out. We've got a couple different options, but we already have the equipment, and we've been running the equipment. We're currently running in Colorado, and we're just looking for the right facility so that we can relocate the equipment.
Okay, that's great. That's exciting. You mentioned the feral hemp. Is that left over from the Hemp for Victory program in the 40s, or is that from an older time?
Yeah, that absolutely is from around that area. There's probably some from prior to that, but that's where the bulk of it's coming from. And it just grows everywhere. I mean, it's something that I grew up with my whole life. We used to spend a lot of money as a county and as a state. It's classified as a noxious weed, or it was. And so there was a lot of spraying that went on, but it's something we just grew up with in our backyards. And quite honestly, the musk thistle is much more dangerous to the state of Nebraska. And most of the efforts went to eliminating musk thistle, not eliminating hemp.
You said
so it
musk thistle?
Yeah, musk thistle. It's this very tough thistle, and it's illegal to grow actually on your property. They'll fine you if they find out that you have this thistle on your property. It just
Why would you grow it?
You wouldn't grow it. It gets there on its own, and your responsibility is to destroy it because it propagates so rapidly. But that's always been more of a concern. Hemp has always grown here. Just everyone knew where the hemp was on every single property, and everyone just left it alone because it wasn't dangerous. I remember as kids, we played around the hemp. I didn't grow any extra toes or fingers or anything like that. And my children are pretty normal from what I can tell. But it's always been around us in this state, at least.
Do people use it for anything? Like, they go out and forage for feral hemp and then, I don't know, make things out of it, or no?
No, but what we do see is there's quite a few people that have known of the value of growing hemp for bird hunting. And you see some farmers that have let patches grow year after year after year because they enjoy the bird hunting that can come out of it.
And that's like what do you call that? Like a blind? And then you would, yeah. I don't understand how that connects with the bird hunting. Like a habitat for birds?
They're just attracted to it. They're attracted to the seeds.
To the seeds, right?
Yeah. And so it's just a natural attractant to doves and pheasants.
I see.
So you're naturally to get more of those birds in the area where you've got hemp. So if you've got some hemp along your field, you're likely to see those types of animals.
Huh, that's cool. Yeah, I would love to see feral hemp someday. So,
Oh yeah, I'll send you a bunch of pictures. We actually spent my brother went around the state over the course of the last 2 years and gathered various varieties of feral hemp. He was gathering some seed, and we also gathered up quite a bit of pollen so that we could kind of preserve some of these genetics.
okay. Are you doing anything at Hemp Harvest Works, with hemp genetics?
Not really. I don't know that I'm smart enough for that. Yeah, that's not my cup of tea. I'd love to. We're far too busy
Yeah.
doing the things that we're doing, but I recognize the importance of some of these feral varieties, and so we just felt it was our responsibility before there was a lot of cross pollination to go out there and see what we could get, and then provide those to some of the seed banks that are out there in the United States. Cornell University, for instance, has some of the native hemp genetics from the state of Nebraska.
Right. Yeah, that's good to preserve that history. Are you growing any hemp yourself?
Oh no, I'm awful. We did. No, I'm embarrassed to say that actually, because I come from a background of farmers. My grandfather, he's 86 years old and still farms every day of his life. Tremendous producer, but no, I'm really bad at growing plants, to be honest. If you check the newspaper reports, my brother and I were technically the first growers of hemp legally in the state of Nebraska. I kind of did a publicity stunt. State of Nebraska wasn't issuing licenses, and when we had the bill passed, we actually wrote in a definition for heirloom hemp and exempted it from licensure. And since they weren't issuing licenses, and I happened to spend the last couple of years gathering up some seeds, we figured, why not put in 3 rows of hemp? We'll get in the newspaper, and maybe we'll get the department to issue licenses. It worked. We got a few threats. The state patrol said they were going to arrest me. The Department of Ags was not happy at all. And 2 weeks later, they started issuing licenses to growers, and we got that going.
That's great. I love that. Troublemaker. Good.
Well, you have to. It was funny, though. We were out there. I was breaking the law. I had my 12-year-old daughter and my 5-year-old son at the time out there planting the hemp seeds together.
That's funny. So what is on the horizon for Hemp Harvest Works this year? You mentioned you have a new piece of equipment. Is there anything else like on the drawing board that you're excited about?
There's several things we're working on. We're actually completing and should have in the next couple of weeks a small-scale decortication unit for research institutions, something that's going to be in the sub $20,000 range. This will also be good just for small producers that kind of want to see what they can do with some of those stocks that they've got.
What's the capacity of that?
We don't know yet. Still trying to figure out and do some of the research on that. So that unknown, but we'll get some details. But yeah. I'm really excited about that because there's not a lot of machines out there that are like that, and its value when it comes to a research perspective is being able to have a consistent machine. So that whether you're in this state or that state, the machine is the same. So now you can really tell the difference in how the varieties are impacting, the decortication is being impacted by the varietal itself. So that's kind of exciting. We're going to continue to develop, tweak different levels of equipment that we have, and find other partners to work with. We've brought on some vendors like Tom's Tumbler this year. We're really excited to work with that group out of California. They've got some neat products from the CBD side of things. Mm-hmm. And we're just looking for gaps ultimately in the marketplace and trying to solve some of those challenges from a supply chain standpoint. I would say that most of my time over the past 6 months and maybe 9 months, COVID blessed me with the opportunity to really network and help understand how we get the fiber and grain markets moving forward. And so I've identified some again, we started doing decortication, and that led to the production of some really high quality fiber. And we actually had that cottonized just a few weeks ago. And so now I've got some cottonized fiber we've sent off to a spinner. And if that all goes well, which it has been going well, then we will have grown hemp in the United States, decorticated in the United States, processed in the United States, and then spun it into yarn in the United States. And that completes a piece of the supply chain that's really been missing in the American marketplace.
Amen to that. I love to hear that. That's great. Tell me how you got involved with the Hemp Feed Coalition.
Oh, so the Hemp Feed Coalition, I really love that organization. The Hemp Feed Coalition, actually, I got involved because the executive director, Hunter, I'd had a lot of experience with her working with the Colorado Hemp Association, which was Colorado Hemp Industries Association at the time. And she had branched off into this organization called the Hemp Feed Coalition. And she invited me to be a member of the board, and I looked into what they were doing, and I just got really excited. And I got excited because one of the things that I travel around the country and talk about are the economics of hemp, because we need to make, hemp's great. We can do this or that or this or that. There's people with a list of 1,000 things. But at the end of the day, if the farmer that grows the hemp can't afford to grow the hemp, this list isn't very exciting. And so we've got to make it affordable for the farmer. The farmer has to profit from this plant. And so, like I said, I go around and I talk a lot about the economics. Well, when you look at the economics, there's a big piece of the puzzle that's missing right now, and that is the offload of the byproduct. So when you look at the byproduct of CBD production, you've got a lot of excess flower material. If you look at the byproduct of fiber production, if you're doing any type of dual crop, or that fiber's just in the field too long, the byproduct of that is the seed. We need, if you're looking at growing for seed, the byproduct of the seed is going to be the cake that comes out of that. And we don't have a way right now, it's not legal to feed any of that, whether it be the flour or the seed itself or the cake. We can't feed that to the animals. And because we can't feed that to the animals, that's making the cost of production of both CBD, grain, and fiber cost more than it should. So the Hemp Feed Coalition is a group of individuals with basically an interest in the boring work that goes with getting this plant approved as a food ingredient. Our mission is very simple. We can compile studies from around the United States, and we take those studies, put them together, and then submit an application to the FDA CVM for hemp as a food ingredient for that particular animal. I think you recently had Hunter on your show, and she talked a little bit about how we supplied an application for egg-laying chickens. And, now that we've got that done, we can put in an application for chickens that are used for meat production, and then we can get to some of the other animals. The challenge that we have is, we've got many challenges. One, there's not enough studies out there for a lot of these animals. And two, it just costs a lot of money. People don't realize how much money this costs. And I find it outstanding how much money it costs to get this application submitted for something that I can go to the grocery store and buy and eat today. But it's about $250,000 per animal. And so when people talk about, why can't we feed this to animals, and how long is it going to be before we get to? Well, as fast as people can get me checks for $250,000, we're gonna keep pumping out applications. But the reality is, it's very costly, and we're a long ways off.
What does that money cover? Is that paying for the science behind it, or is that just like an application fee, or like where does that money go?
Most of that's going into the science and the testing necessary to provide the paperwork to the FDA. I mean, you've got different veterinarians that you're going to have looking at studies. You've got to have somebody compile all of this work. There are some application fees, but that's not the most of it.
Okay.
Consultants that are experts in getting these applications passed, they take a little bit of the money. All said and done, it just rounds out to be between $200,000 and $250,000 for all the science work that goes into it.
So you mentioned the eggs and then the chickens. So that'll be first, and what's after that?
That's what we got to decide. We haven't put. We've got a lot of studies on cattle. There's a lot of studies that we've got on horses. And then there's been quite a few studies on cats and dogs. We've been looking at some of those animals, and we might go that route of the companion animal next.
Because that's got to be a little easier since we don't generally eat those companion animals here in the United States.
Correct. Generally, we do not eat those companion animals in the United States.
Although I have to say, horses do look delicious. But whatever, never mind.
So yeah, that is something we're looking at. We really wanted to get past this chicken application, and now that is a discussion we're having as to which direction where do we want to spend our energy next, because it does take quite a bit of energy.
Yeah, and it's got to be somewhat frustrating because sort of anecdotally that humans have been feeding hemp to animals for a really long time, right? I mean, this plant's been with us for a long time. But now,
absolutely. And especially since you can literally go to the store and buy the seed from the store and eat it.
Yeah.
You just can't feed it to your cow and then put that cow on the shelf of that same store.
Right.
It's maddening.
Yeah. I mean, just this morning, my wife made a smoothie with hemp hearts, so yeah.
Don't eat your wife. You'll be breaking the law.
That's a different podcast. I hear that. It's got to be so frustrating. But yeah, the work you're doing with the Hemp Feed Coalition is fantastic because, it's all good for the farmer, and that's what all of this is about.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's really when hemp becomes a majorly viable crop as an alternative source of income for farmers, is when we've got all of those different outlets. I mean, the emergence of the fiber market this year is exciting, but that's still not enough acres to make a difference in terms of what farmers need to be able to grow. And there's some areas that, quite honestly, a grain crop will grow better than a fiber crop. And we need to provide as many avenues as possible. And then when you look at us compared to the to Europe, we're actually at a disadvantage because they can do this right now and we can't. So it's a disadvantage the United States farmer has relative to a European farmer.
Mm-hmm. I had something and it just slipped out of my head. Hold on.
I do that all the time. That's most of my day, is trying to remember what I was talking about.
It's like you go into the kitchen. Why did I walk into the kitchen? All right.
While you're thinking, I'm going to show you something real quick.
Okay, thanks.
So I know people cannot see me, but this is some of that.
Is that the cottonized fiber?
Yeah, long line fiber that we had cottonized. And you can see.
It's nice and fluffy.
Oh, yeah. It's really amazing. And if you break it down and get into some of these
look at that.
fibers, I mean, we've got some of these.
It's like, what, 6-8 inches?
Yeah, we've got 6 and 8 inch long strands of, this is usually bundles of fiber, actually, when you look at it under a microscope. But yeah, we're getting some really long pieces of material that are breaking up really, really nice. And so I'm excited to get these spun.
So what is the process behind cottonizing hemp?
So in order to get it to this stage, we've taken the long line fiber and this has gone through a process called wet processing. And essentially they use these big kilns I'm sure you've done some canning in your lifetime. Mm-hmm. So just imagine a 500-gallon pressure cooker, and you put the hemp in there, and you're basically pressure cooking it, and it allows
lignins.
Yeah, exactly. Those lignins start to break down. and after a couple hours, then you can take that out. You can comb that, dry that, and then you can go into the next step, which would be going to a carding machine, which will do all that combing before you go into the spinning.
That's great.
Most of the processing that's done, it's really hard to find those big pressure cookers, believe it or not. Getting a setup like that can cost $10 to $15 million. So, and most of the people in the United States that have done that have gone overseas. You saw most of that go over to China. So it's really, really hard to find people that have the capabilities of doing this type of work. And we just happen to find one of the last places in the United States. He's a third generation wet processor. His grandfather came over here from England in the early 1900s and set up a shop, and they're still doing it today.
Wow. What's the name of that shop?
The gentleman's name's Dave Littlewood, and they're actually just outside of Philadelphia.
Oh, okay. That's right down the road from me.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an exciting time in America, I believe. Like, industry is it feels like it's coming back. We're going to repatriate all of these industries that went overseas, and it's exciting.
Yeah, I hope we can revive a few of them. Obviously, some of the stuff is not quite economical in the long run, but we can still make some pretty nice high-end fibers here in the United States and be competitive to what they're charging from China. If you look at how much hemp coming over from China to the United States costs, we are much cheaper to process it here than doing it over there.
That's good to know. So a couple of questions that I like to ask guests. One of them is, how can farmers avoid getting the short end of the stick in the hemp industry? What would you answer to that question?
God, that's a tough one. Education. To me, it's just about educating yourself and understanding the industry that you're working in. Starting small and really getting a handle on all of it. Farmers getting into this industry have a challenge, unlike the others, which is they really need to understand where they're going to go to market with this, and there's not a clear path there. So that to me is how they're not going to get the short end of the stick. Is they're going to educate themselves. They're going to go to conferences. They're going to talk to leaders within their state. They're going to talk to other people that have done this and listen to them about what the struggles that they've had are, and then identify if they're willing to be that pioneer. Because right now, in order to do this, there's a lot of risk, and you got to be willing to be that pioneer that's willing to stick your neck out.
That's a good answer. The other question is, and this is probably, we sort of covered it a little bit about when you were talking about the conservative nature of Nebraskans, but does the marijuana stigma matter, or how does it matter? How does it manifest itself in your work?
Oh, absolutely, it matters. It's been, when you talk about the conservativeness in Nebraska, it's because of the word marijuana. It's hard for us to have a conversation about hemp with certain people without them believing that we're not trying to smoke it and get high. It's hard to get people to disassociate that, and that to me is why it's so important. When we've been going out and educating Nebraskans, that we've been providing samples of the things that aren't flour, hemp parts, wood products, this cottonized fiber, so that you can match something else in your mind. And now when people think of hemp, maybe they think of this instead of thinking of that flower or a guy smoking a joint, because that's there's smokable hemp flower out there, but that's not what the industry is about. The industry is much bigger than that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any last things that we should talk about? Actually, how about this? What's the best way for listeners to see what you've got there at Hemp Harvest Works?
Oh, great question. So definitely check us out on the web. Go to www.hempharvestworks.com. That's HEMP HARVESTWORKS.com. You can email us at email@bishcom.com. You can call us 402-849-2674. And, we'd love to talk to you and just better understand what your conditions are.
Cool. Well, I will put those links and the phone number on the webpage for this episode. So people can just go to lancasterfarming.com and find those links and then go see you too.
Yeah. And then, of course, if you're interested in what we're doing at the Hemp Feed Coalition, please visit us on the web, hempfeedcoalition.org. It's a great association to get involved with, $100 a year to really make a difference for the hemp industry. And if it makes anybody feel any better, none of us are getting paid there. We're all donating our time. All of your money will go to a good use, and none of it will go to my pocket, I promise.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, this industry is amazing because it's so many, different people from different areas coming together to build an industry from the ground up. And it's encouraging, and it sort of like restores my faith in people, like people coming together, making it happen.
Yeah, I joke around with some of my good friends, but there's a certain part of it that's true, that us true pioneers in the hemp industry, we stick together despite the fact that we know that there's no money yet. So we're in here for the long haul because we understand the benefit that it can bring to every American and every farmer out there, and hopefully someday we'll start to turn a profit. As others turn to profit themselves.
Yeah, good. Well, Andrew Bish, it's been an honor getting to talk to you today. Thank you for your time.
Well, the honor is all mine, Eric. I really appreciate what you do for the industry and the information you share with the farmers out there in the United States.
All right, that's Andrew Bish from Hemp Harvest Works and Bish Enterprises in Nebraska. And now we're going to check in with the winner of last week's headphone giveaway, a hemp farmer from Ohio. Luke Knies, welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing?
Great, Eric. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate the show.
Yeah, well, so the big news is that you won the headphone giveaway.
Yes, awesome. I can't wait to try those out. That's amazing that somebody's using hemp for all these different ideas, including headphones. I can't wait. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll be shipping those out this week, so you'll get them soon. Yeah, it's amazing. I sort of stumbled upon them on the internet, and Grado Labs in Brooklyn, they were like, "Here, have a pair, try them out." And I wanted to share them with somebody in the audience, so I appreciate you listening to the show. So you're out there in Ohio. What part of Ohio are you in?
We're in Tuscarawas County, Ohio. It's about an hour south of Cleveland, down the main 77 highway. We're in a traditionally rural farming community, historically dairy operations.
Mm-hmm. A lot like Pennsylvania, then, I assume.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And so tell me about Focus Organic Hemp. That's the name of your company, right?
Yeah, we're Focus Organics. We started our hemp company in 2020. My partner and I, Matthew Jones, with the idea that we wanted to enter the hemp space. It's new and exciting. And just to be able to start to play with some genetics and to be involved in the cannabis community that is the hemp space. Now, as it's just started the first year in Ohio, we thought we'd jump in year one on a permit and try it out.
What size operation are you doing?
Our operation right now is the minimum entry that you can have in Ohio. So the limit is 1,000 plants on a quarter acre. So we trialed one variety at that scale.
Okay. And what variety was it, and how was it this year?
We went with a CBG variety because we were expecting some lower THC compliance, and we did have that. We got a CBG seed out of Indiana. The seed is an OG Kush crossed with the white, the real famous CBG. And we hadn't heard of anybody else running this cultivar. And as far as we know, this was the first year for it. It was interesting. The seed game is definitely very intense as far as purchasing and trusting people. We did have some issues there. But when we finally got some seed, it was pretty good stock for a hemp variety.
Good. Any advice you can offer to people who are getting into the seed buying game this year?
Yeah, I would say don't hesitate to spend the money that you think you might not have, because that's your whole output. That ended up being our largest input, being the seed cost and seed cost loss that we had from just being straight up. One day a company stopped calling us back after we had paid them for seed.
Oh,
So we had lost that investment initially. That was our first major purchase, and then we were stuck to scramble to find new seeds. So go with companies that are legitimate, long-term standing. Even if you have to pay double the rate, it seems to be that's what you're going to find. Then you're getting crop yields, you're getting plant expectations that can be mimicked by another farmer. Anytime you're trying a cheaper seed or a new seed or a new varietal, there's no one to ask how that varietal works. These hemp breeding programs, a lot of these are the first time anyone's ever grown this outdoors or at all. So there's no testing of these, and it's all on the farmer to do it. So if you go with a legitimate company, they can give you a little bit of back history.
I've heard some growers say that you should also ask those seed companies for, other contacts, talk to other growers that they've sold to and have grown those cultivars.
Yeah, and that's the only way to legitimize seed. That is an excellent way to do that. And now in the future, the seed we plan to go with next year and the different clones, we have spoke directly to farmers, if not met them one-on-one, to go over what this plan is and what its potential is.
How about the the field spacing? Well, talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So we laid out a 6-bed system. We're on plastic culture, so we do raised beds on drip irrigation. We do all organic inputs. Most of them are OMRI, if not more stringent. OMRI is getting a little weak these days in their organic standards, unfortunately, in cannabis, and some of their products are even outlawed now in California. But our bed system is traditionally we plow, we disc, and then we rotivate. We stick down our plastic culture, and then we can let those beds sit as long as we need until optimal transplanting time. We put out our beds on that plastic culture, and then they're just fully sun-grown. So we don't have any rain prevention or anything like that.
And then how was it for harvesting and drying?
Yeah, so our harvest season was very drawn out because of our seed type. So our seed broke down into 4 different phenotypes, basically. 2 of those are ones we harvested, and the other 2 were just mold. So we started harvesting at the end of September, but we probably could have started middle September. And we actually harvested for 30 days and had to request another 30 days. So we were almost into November, really cold, and we even got some frost on our crop at the very end.
So that 15-day rule didn't mess you up at all?
It didn't, because when our phenotypes broke down, a quarter of them were CBG plants and a quarter of the plants were CBD plants. And that's just from the natural splitting of the phenotypes. So the ones that were CBG, for your listeners, for further notes, CBG finishes anywhere from a month to 6 weeks earlier, depending on the cultivar. It just has a quicker time, and you're not pushing CBG to a full maturity like you do a CBD, because CBG actually starts to lose its potential, and you're having lower amounts of CBG as the plant matures. So CBG is picked earlier. So we had a 60-day window that we were harvesting. We did it in about 3 or 4 drying room settings.
Okay. Yeah. And then what are you going to do with the finished bud?
Yeah. So right now we have our CBG on the market, and it's available in stores and online. And we just broke it down into raw flour, and it's in 8s, quarters, and halves. And we had to take that actually out of state to get it processed in Pennsylvania to meet Ohio's law that you have to have a hemp processor actually take this material and make sure that it's food safe.
Yeah. It was hard finding a processor in Ohio.
Yeah. It's my understanding that there aren't any zero processors that are open to the public in Ohio.
Interesting.
And when I went out of state to Pennsylvania, no one had even heard what I was talking about. They had never had to deal with anybody from Ohio just bagging up flour.
Right. You had sent me a link to a study about phytoremediation. What got you thinking about that?
Yeah, so I have my degree in geology, and the company I work for, we actually do, separate from Focus, we actually do permitting for the coal industry and for the aggregates industry. So I'm involved a lot with the environmental permitting. And a lot of these old coal mine lands were originally being reclaimed when I first entered the space 10 years ago, but now that federal money has fallen out. So we had joked around about phytoremediation with hemp 5-6 years ago. And then I just stumbled across this article in the last couple of months that there's someone actually in PA that did a minor study to see, what potential this plant really has. And it was done on coal mine grounds, which is specifically where I am, boots on the ground every day in these kind of toxic places that are forgotten about all around us. Mm-hmm. And it really shows an opportunity here of a low cost remediation source that a lot of these people reclaiming this ground are already planting legumes or grass or something like that they have to incorporate, so they could just use this in their future mixes, I believe.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I know there's a lot of phytoremediation work happening in Italy, and then more famously around the Chernobyl site that they've been growing industrial hemp there for, decades now, and it seems to be working. So yeah, it's fantastic news, because we've got quite a few Superfund sites here in the United States. It's a sad state of affairs. So yeah, hopefully hemp can help out there too.
Yeah, but the wildest part about that study, it actually showed that THC reacted opposite to these heavy metal contaminations. So in traditional THC breeding, they thought that any stimulant or most stimulants that would cause the plant to react in a state of emergency, that it would produce higher THC. Well, this is showing that these heavy metal loads are dropping THC and boosting CBD way, way high. So anytime you have these heavy metals enter, it's making the CBD produce more than the THC. And it has to directly be related to that contamination and proteins, but how? So it kind of changes some of that traditional breeding, whereas in the hemp space, you're always trying to breed THC down, down, down. And we're fighting heavy metals, but it turns out that these heavy metals are actually helping the CBD production. So if you have heavy metals in your plants, let's say you barely pass your regulations, you're going to have higher CBD levels. So that's a really weird space that we're entering now, where you're trying to limit these metals entering your plant through water, through soil. But on the other side, that's one of the main things that keeps THC down. So there's a lot of work that needs done to try to keep CBD compliant with these contaminated water sources, soils that are completely, in my county, I think 98% of the county has been mined. So the potential for pollution is really high. So we had to seek out areas that would not be contaminated by those sources, because we knew we wouldn't pass our metals. So we did a lot of preliminary testing, and we passed. But I can see other people that just dive into some space and they don't know what's there or what's upstream of them, and they won't pass. They might have great CBD levels, 20-25%, but it's going to be toxic stuff.
Yeah, you don't want those heavy metals in your medicine. No way. I wonder too if, rather than planting cannabinoid varieties of hemp, if they should be using fiber varieties, something with more biomass to pull out more of the toxins from the soil.
Yeah, I, in that thought, I was wondering if it would be more important for a plant density or a specific cultivar that actually does that better. So I think that the genome could be explored more to see which cultivar, maybe not a density, or as we're thinking about it, a specific fiber cultivar or a CBD cultivar. In the future, it could just be a phytoremediation cultivar.
Right.
And
yeah.
All these different spaces, even THC plants, and use that as an avenue to get the phytoremediation. So.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool idea. How about the future of Focus Organics?
So the future of Focus Organics is that we're looking to aim at quality. As I have entered the medicinal space for my personal use and seeing the inconsistencies in these high-end products that you're getting, even just right down to vitamins, it's discouraging. So the future of Focus Organics would definitely be to try to tune into the customer and see what they like, why they like, but what it's doing for them on a holistic level and why it's working for them. And that is why we selected CBG specifically. My partner and I suffer from inflammation daily, and that's a specific thing that we could implement in our lives that is benefiting us, and we want to spread that.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah, it seems like inflammation, unfortunately, seems to be part of the human condition.
Yes.
And hemp used to be part of the human condition a whole lot more than it is now. So it looks like we're on the road to getting back there.
Definitely, I agree.
Yeah. Hey, well, Luke Knies, it's great to talk to you. Thank you for listening to our show, and congratulations again on winning those hemp headphones. And once you get them and try them out, let's reconnect and I don't know, we'll just keep in touch, okay?
Yep, I will just, thanks again. Appreciate your show. And I can't wait to try those out.
All right, so that is Luke Knies, a cannabinoid farmer in Ohio. I'll have the link to that phytoremediation study he was talking about on the show page for this episode, as well as a link to his business and the links that Andrew Bish talked about, and of course all of those hemp news nugget links. So please go to lancasterfarming.com and check out all that good stuff. So what else? Well, my name is Eric Herlock. I'm the digital editor at Lancaster Farming newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world. And as further proof of that, Lancaster Farming newspaper made its debut at the Nebraska Ag Expo this week. Thanks to our friends at I&D Hemp, who took a bundle of papers with them and were given out to farmers. So thanks, guys. Appreciate that. And yeah, tune in next week for the details about the Canvas Supply Company giveaway. We've got some fun things in store for you. And also, I am starting to think about the summertime, and I am putting together a road trip, a hemp and fiber tour across these great United States. If you would like to get involved in sponsoring that trip, please drop me a line. We're going to need all the help we can get. But what I would like to do is connect the dots, from Pennsylvania to Kentucky, to the Midwest, up to Montana, out to the West Coast, down through the Southwest, over to Texas, up through Alabama, up through the Deep South, all those places. There's so many great people in this country doing amazing things with grain and fiber, as well as CBD, but this tour is going to be about grain and fiber. So hit me up if you want more details about that. Always email me at podcast@lancasterfarming.com. And yeah, that's the show today. So until next time, I'll see you in the newspaper. Episode 121 of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast is copyright 2021 by Lancaster Farming newspaper, which is part of the Steinman Communications family. Today's show was written and recorded, edited, and produced by yours truly, Eric Herlock. And the music you hear throughout the show is courtesy of Tin Bird Shadow.
industrial hemp.